Okay, here we are.
Great. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. This is the 22 September meeting of the Finance Committee. Really, it's a kickoff of our Fall Town Meeting preparation and lead up to the Fall Town Meeting. We've had one previous meeting since Springtown meeting, but really this is when we'll start the hard work in earnest to review warrant articles and a number of other issues that we've been working towards. So I want to welcome everybody. First off, I want to welcome our newest member, Sarah Reyes, to my right, and thank you for volunteering. It's definitely, you should be proud of your service to your town, as I am, and as I think all the committee members should be. And so thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you. And so I'm just going to start off with, to my left, if you would just introduce yourself. And then we'll have, we have members joining us via Zoom as well. And so you guys can fight over it, what order you introduce yourselves. But please just take a second to introduce yourself. So go ahead, Joyce.
Hi, Joyce Boyardi, 206 Orchard Street here in Millis, resident for 39 years, on the Finance Committee now for 3 years.
I'm Sarah Reyes, 9 Himmelfarb Street in Millis, and I've been a resident for about 19 years. And I have 2 kids in the school.
Kathy McInnes, 78 Island Road.
Go ahead, John.
I'm Jessica Garson. I'm on Cosplay, and I can't remember how many years I've been on the Finance Committee, but I've lived in Millis for 11 years now.
I live on Pleasant Street. I've been with the Finance Committee for all of 3 months, and lived in those for about 6 years now.
I'm Jim Boardman. I live on Grove Street. I've been here in Millis for about 30 years, and I think I've been on the Finance Committee for about 6 or 7 years.
I'm John Stecker. This is my second meeting on FinCom. I've lived in the town for almost 2 years.
Doug Riley on Village Street. Lived in Millis for 21 years. And if Jim Boardman's been on the Finance Committee for 6 or 7 years, then I've been on longer. I don't remember how long either.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. And I don't think anybody else is currently on Zoom, Deirdre, but Deirdre's on, of course. But Deirdre, is there anybody else that's logged on? Excuse me, thank you.
Lee is here as Select Board Chair.
Okay, so Mr. Germain, thank you very much. My apologies for omitting you. And so we're going to get right into the meeting. So I want to welcome Mr. McKay. I've asked for several kind of topical updates, really just to help us recage where we left off on a number of issues before, summer break, unofficial break, and get some updates, as I'm sure there are some developments. So, Mr. McKay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. So we'll start with the PFAS. There was you wanted a brief explanation on PFAS. So we're still doing our monthly, quarterly testing. Wells 1 and 2 is still offline. Wells 1 and 3 through the summer has held its, I'd say an average between 15 to 17 parts per trillion. So that's above the 10 parts per trillion, makes that trigger that testing has to be done monthly. Wells 5 and 6, both right around, well 6 is, with the last time we tested it, it was like 8 point something parts per trillion. Wells 5, that's around 4 parts per trillion. And also that's well 4, that's in the low numbers of 4 parts per trillion. So those 3 wells, 4, 5, and 6, they all have to be tested quarterly. We're expecting a big report tomorrow. I was hoping to have it by the last Friday, so it could have been shared with the town administrator, and then he would have presented it to the select board. But we're expecting that tomorrow. That will bring us for a design phase of 60% for wells 1 and 2 for the construction of the treatment plant. We did we've stolen some of the stuff out of the design of the cost, mainly the cost for the treatment plant, and we do have that, a placeholder right now at around $5.4 million for the build-out of the treatment plant for wells 1 and 2. We have selected the site. It will be built, if you're all aware, at the DPW site in the back of the woods, wells 1 and 2. They go well into the woods. There's an old, it used to be a water building, and then it was a dog. Actually, the animal control office used to be out of there. So those buildings will be demolished, and that's where the new treatment plant will be built. I would hope that when we get ready, so like I said, let me go back. When we get the 60% design package tomorrow, I'll submit it to the town administrator. I'm sure he'll submit it to the select board, and I would assume, I don't know if that will be on their docket Monday night for some brief discussion on that. The cost will be in there. And then from there, Kleinfelder will have the 100% design ready for this town meeting, for a vote at this town meeting. So I would suggest that we have a joint meeting between all committees. I think it should be one of those, like you have your joint committee meetings with schools and everything else. I would hope we would have some sort of a public meeting before it goes to town meeting, so we can present, the design, the cost, and so on. Kathy McGinnis has been working on a show with cable that's I'm not going to try to get ahead of, or take your bluster away from it, but we've been working on it all summer to give a little presentation on what is PFAS. The first show is going to air. They're going to film it. Well, you can fill it in, Kathy, if you'd like, or if you'd like me to keep going.
Keep going.
It's going to be, the first show is what is PFAS, and Kathy Lannon, a great resource that the town has, and I don't think anybody can say anything better than that. Her knowledge of anything, on anything, any subject is true and right to the point. She'll do the first show, and then after that, I would hope before town meeting, if there's enough time, I don't know if there may not be, that we can get into maybe presenting Kleinfelder, myself, and maybe a select board member would come and speak of, and the town administrator also, what the cost of that will be. We know it's a short time frame, and we're going to try to get it all in there so the public knows exactly what's going on, so they can't say that they're not aware of what's going on. It was a tight schedule. Like I said, the money was available of July 1st to start this phase of the design. Kleinfelder did start a little ahead of it, but they really couldn't get into it. We couldn't spend money into contractors coming out doing test borings and all that until after July 1st. So they're doing a great job with getting this built, not built, getting it designed and getting ready for it to go out to bid, hopefully, if approved, and if the select board agree with this, that it will go out to bid January, February, with the construction hopefully starting a shovel in the ground well into the spring of next year.
Okay. Can you talk about grant money that may...
So we are applying through the federal government. We are looking at different aspects of that. I think the town administrator will talk, and maybe Carol also, the finance director, will talk about how some of the funding could be used. I'm not aware of that. I'm not trying to be smart, but that's their job to, and I'm sure they'll explain that later in the meeting of how they plan on spending some of the, not CARES Act or whatever, the infrastructure money towards paying for this.
Okay. I'll just ask you a couple questions, then I'll open it up to the floor. The readings that you're on, I think you're on weekly readings on well 1, 2, and 3?
So 1 and 2 are offline right now, so we don't have to test that. Yeah. We haven't been testing that at all.
And that's because it went over, and please correct me, I'm just trying to kind of fill everybody in and give some background, but went over 20 parts per million. Parts per million, parts per billion?
It's 20 parts per trillion.
Trillion, okay, correct. So keep going.
Yes,
20 parts per trillion shuts the well down. your well readings, you said about 15, 16, 14. Are those trending in a particular direction, or are they, up and down?
It's funny, you would think that with the rain and the heavy rains that we had, we were anticipating them going up, and it's the opposite. They were, over the summer, we went from 17 down to, the last was right around 14.3 parts per trillion. I think that was last month. And we just did a testing. We should be getting that any day, what this month the reading was.
Okay, all right.
For that.
I'll open it up to my colleagues for questions. Joyce?
Thank you. For those people who don't know what PFAS stands for, if you wouldn't mind telling them. So, I mean, I know, those who are familiar with it know everything, but there are some people who are tuning in now that might not be aware of it. So since we're trying to be as transparent as possible, it'd be great.
So it's an acronym for, it's poly, and I'm going to destroy it, and I can't even state what the whole process is. It's a man-made substance that is made its way from, and I stress, it's a man-made substance. This doesn't come from rain. It doesn't come from global warming. It doesn't come from
Not
anything.
from the environment.
It doesn't come from the environment. It comes from a man-made. You find it in waterproofing materials. Mainly you find it in a lot of cleaning products. You find it in plastic. You find it in, biggest is Teflon. And that's why I encourage everybody to watch the first show, because she'll get into all of that, what it is. It's a compound of almost 48 different types of chemicals, and right now the state regulates 6 of them. And the only way to remove it once it gets into the water system is by treatment.
And how did it get into the system?
That we're looking at that, which it had to have gotten in there somehow. So we are looking as a town legally, and we're looking to see where it came from. And that's about all I can get into that with
That's fine.
legalistics.
Oh, that's fine.
Yep.
That's fine. Somehow it got into our water system. 2 of the wells are closed down, and now we have how many that are open?
We have 4.
4 that are
wells
open.
1 teetering on the. So let me give you a brief. So let's say well 3 came up. Oh God, I'm going to jinx myself. We get this report and it's over the 20 parts per trillion. What you do is you would take the average of the 3 months, and you would come up with whatever that was. So if for 1 month it spiked over, you would still have time. But if it remained over that 20 parts per trillion, that would be another well that would have to come offline. And I think that's when Millis would be in a dangerous situation. We're very lucky that our forefathers before us felt that invested into such a vast well system that we have for 8,000, 9,000 people, that we could service a community of hundreds of thousands of people. But as you take those off, you lose the gallonages that you could pump out of each one of those wells, and we cannot lose one more well. If we do, then we're in not serious trouble, but we'd have to
It's a
really
concern.
restrict a lot of how we do our daily life.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen.
Correct.
Real quick before I see if anybody else has any questions. Back in the spring, the select board wrote a letter to our local elected representatives. Do you know if there's ever been a reply to that letter?
I believe that there was a reply, and I'll let Mr. Jermaine, speak to that. That there was a letter that came from the DEP to address to him, I believe it was.
Okay. Mr. Jermaine, do you care to fill us in? Pete? The question was there a response to the select board's letter that was sent to our elective representation, state reps?
I'm sorry, the sound keeps cutting out, and I do apologize.
Sorry about that. I'll try one more time, and then, we'll We'll see what happens, see if Mr. Gazinski
A
can help
response
us.
to what letter was this?
The letter that the select board sent to our state representatives regarding PFAS.
Yes, there has been a response, and I thought that had been distributed publicly, and I know it's supposed to be, and it should be on the site. On all honesty, they didn't really reply directly to many of our questions. However, I have followed up, and I have some people who are designated in Alvin Kloss's office, following up with both the EPA, and I have talked with both Linsky and Dooley. Dooley in particular is doing some follow-up right now with the local DEP to try to get clarification on some of the issues associated with the standards. The follow-up I've had with Altencloss has to do with paying for the wells. If you've been following what Jim has been saying over the last several months and what we found, it appears, and I'm just estimating, and Jim will correct me, that mitigation is going to cost about $5 million on, say, the 2 wells, 1 and 2. So let's say it's approximately $5 million per installation. That could change, but we'll see. My point to all 3 representatives has been, we will need financial assistance in this. And Altencloss's, well, we talked with him directly and his aides. We're waiting on the finalization of the bill that's being put together right now in Congress to get passed. If and when that gets passed, we can use the monies toward mitigation. Linsky pointed out that the approximately $2 million the town received, it wasn't CARES, it's the ARCP, I can never remember all these acronyms, we could use toward mitigation also, and we will do so, at least to the greatest extent possible. DEP, I think it was, had said, well, we got to a grant, and it was in the $250,000 range. And they said, well, you can use that. And that's great, we are, and I believe Jim is doing that. I can't see Jim, so I'm just assuming that if he has a problem with anything I'm saying, he'll jump in. But the bottom line is, we're looking to make sure it minimizes the financial impact on the town, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be moving ahead very rapidly, and in fact, this is on agendas for upcoming meetings. I'm saying that in plural purposely because there's no one meeting that's going to resolve it.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
I think that pretty well covers where we're at.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions on PFAS for Mr. McKay before he moves on to paving? Okay, none heard. Go ahead, Jim. Thank you.
Now the good news. So we had a very aggressive schedule this year on paving. I think people can notice that. Let's start off with the freebies. Orchard Street was completed from the town line to the Stone Arch Bridge. When I say freebie, a lot of wear and tear of people's, how can I say, their patience, were put into waiting for that to get done. But it's done, and it's. I think everybody will agree that it was well worth the wait for the many years of time that was wasted on it. We do have so everyone knows, the DPW is looking, and we do have a contractor. Now that the paving's done, we're going to fix the side walls of the bridge that have been an eyesore for so many years that trucks have hit it. Not sure. Hopefully they don't hit it again, but that's not my. We are going to take care of that. So they are closing out. They're part of the infrastructure work, Toll Brothers, for the sewer station on Middlesex Street. In that, there's an article. There's a discussion Monday night to release their bond for all that work. So it doesn't mean they're going anywhere. If there's issues that pop up, you know, we still have their phone numbers. I think with all the heavy rain that we've had, again, knock on wood, we haven't had one complaint from a resident that, you know, of water coming off the road into their property. And I think this was a great year for that to, you know, to happen, because the road was finished before we got the heavy rains of, you know, July, August, and September. So I'll just briefly go over what we did, what we've done, and, you know, how much is left over. So the Chapter 90 funding as of July 1st, and you have this in your paperwork, there was $517,367.73. So we put the bid out to pay Farm Street, Ridge Street, and 2 sections of Main Street. And when we had our estimate, you know, it comes in, we always try to keep it a little high, because we, you know, this funding here, if you overspend it, whatever $1 over it, you know, you got to come up with funding to pay for that out of revenues and budgetary things by the end of June 30th of the fiscal year. So what I gave you is Miozy was the contractor, and for all that work that I just mentioned, you know, and we've already paid this bill, is $342,150.95. The police details, and when I put open, because we have not received the line painting aspect of it, and that also has details with it. So that leaves the project still open. Once that is, I get those bills, and I will submit the paperwork for the refunding of that to the Mass DOT. And we hope, well, we're looking at out of that 517, that we will have maybe $100 and something thousand for next year to go along with the $270,000. $277,000 is what we usually get from the state to add for more paving for next year.
Can you repeat that, please?
So we get 277 something each year for Chapter 90 funds, and if you subtract all what we owe here from that 517, we're hoping it should be right around that $100,000 after everything is submitted for line painting and the rest of the police details.
Thank you.
So that'll give us a leg up, you know, for next year. We'll still have, you know, we usually go in with that $300 and something thousand. This year we were at Article 17 at the Springtown meeting. We were the voters gave the town $143,805.23. We held off on bidding this part of it because we weren't, with the large amount of what we put out to bid, we weren't too comfortable that everything was going to come in under budget. Because like I stated earlier, if this goes over by $1, the town has to make up that difference. So we always try to hold off some funding to make sure that that doesn't happen. And it has, I don't think it's ever happened, that, you know, that we would have to go back to the town, and it would be at the November town meeting. Because and it's not like snow and ice that you can push off for a year. You have to close that account out by June 30th of the fiscal year. So we put a second bid out for that amount of money of the $143,805.23, and we had in it, we took it from the list that we work off of, and Spring Street was the next one on the list. And Spring Street may have moved up a little more because of the, if you added three small streets together, it would have put it over that 143,000 range. So I did recommend to the town administrator, and we recommended to the select board, I think it was at their last meeting, that they approved this contract to the LaRusso for $109,712, and that will pave, and I think you have the map in your packet, it'll pave Spring Street from Main Street to Plain Street. It's right where Tangerini's, that whole area there, if anybody's looking where is Spring Street. The exit from the school, the high school, middle high school, that's Spring Street. The only drawback about that, when we get in there and mill it and pave it, school will be open, and we will work around the the times when the buses and, people have to drop their kids off. And that's what we have police details for. And, we'll have a couple more on it, because if we have to close down the road, we'll definitely need police details. So we're looking to do that, starting within the next 2 weeks, and it should be done by the end of October. And it's 3,550 feet approximately, and we'll mill it 1.5 inch, and we'll top it with, when we say 1.5 inch, it usually ends up being a little bit more than that, because you have to level it all off, and they just use that paving to level it off. We estimate that the police details would be almost $4,300, and again, holding contingency of $11,000 is a 10% contingency. So that will bring that to $125,435.20. Now these funds, I can assure you, will be spent by, the whole 143 will be spent on before the end of this fiscal year. Because what we plan on doing is using a scarifying, and when I say a leveling course, up on Walnut Hill Street, up near the water tank. We're not ready to actually pave that yet, because we still are looking at putting in a new booster station there. And the reason that's been held off is, finally we got the land got, turned over to the town. There was an agreement that the select board signed with one of the residents, and all that land was gifted to us all around the Walnut Street tank. And the Walnut Street tank is off of Walnut Street, if anybody knows where it is. But the road it's probably one of the worst roads in Millis. We're aware of that. We know it. And we hopefully are going to go up this winter, before winter, and do something, because it's a mess.
It sure is.
So, and then whatever's left over, come the spring, we'll do some crack sealing with those funds. And I would encourage, if we can get the same amount next year, it would be great. I mean, because then we can just, if we look around, I mean, things are, they're still bad, but they're getting better. The roads are, we've done every cent of Chapter 90 funding in the past 8, 9, 10 years have been put towards paving roads. And I know the biggest problem is, Route 109, and if the select board chooses to pave from Medway to almost Hammond Lane, that'll chew up money for the next 3-4 years, because you're talking about possibly 3/4 of, more than that. I'd say $750,000 to almost $1 million to mill and pave all that. So that's why we do little sections at a time, and we do plan on doing a little bit next year, but that'll be during the presentation. So I think that's what we have in paving. Like I said, I want to thank the residents of Millis for giving us this funding, and I hope that they can see that it was well worth, that appropriation of Article number 17, and hopefully we'll have an Article 17 either in November or at the next May town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I just had one question about Route 109. Is that not a state road?
No. So it's a numbered state road, but we maintain it because that's most of the funding that we get in Chapter 90. It's by what the town maintains, and that's our longest stretch of road. So if we took that off and they maintained it, it would be, we wouldn't get that money in the Chapter 90. Actually, I don't think there's one, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know, maybe in Dedham, but I think almost every town owns all their aspects of Route 109. The majority do.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Jim, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
Nope.
Because I didn't ask you about this in advance, but can you give us a very brief update on the Birch Street storm drain project?
Yes, that is under design. We did test borings on that through the summer. That is going to go out to bid. When you look at bidding for projects like this, either you bid early or you, so we plan on bidding that through the winter, and that will go out to bid, and that will start early spring also.
Okay.
So we did do all the test borings like a month ago, and so the full design is completed.
And you can just tell me if I'm on track here, but obviously we had a lot of rain this summer, and I can't imagine that problem solved itself. It's probably been as worse as it has ever been, and we're just validating that is a good use of funds.
Sure. So what we did is we as when I say we, the DPW crews, they cleaned up. We relieved a section of the main catch basin on Village Street. So now what happens is that is flowing perfectly well into the wet well that's down in front of a resident's property. So now that just fills up even quicker, and it just floods out. There's a tree farm there that it just completely is washing all that area out, and it's even, with this heavier rain that we've had, it's even doing it quicker, because now Village Street's not holding up all that water any longer. It's just going straight in, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. And the design of it will be that the retention basins that will be built underground will be able to handle all that.
And so the town should anticipate that construction on Village Street and Birch next spring?
Early spring, yes.
Early spring, okay. Okay, any last comments for Mr. McKay? None heard. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Jim.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mike, you're next.
Actually, Carol's next. So I invite Ms. Johnson to come up to give us some CARES Act update, as well as the, for lack of a better term, the marijuana revenue update. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Carol Johnston, Finance Director. So right now, the balance that we have left for the CARES Act is around $78,000. That money is to be spent before December 31st, so I'm pretty certain we're going to meet the number. I've spoken to the fire chief, and to make sure that if there are any large expenses that the fire department needs to put toward the CARES Act, we make sure that that's done before December 31st. On the ARPA money that Mr. Jermaine was speaking about before, that money can be used, that $2.4 million can be used 100% toward the water treatment facility. The only thing that we'll need to do is have a certified vote at town meeting that they approve the project. And then we can submit toward getting that money to put toward the well.
Okay.
So I think that it's important. That's
I don't know if anybody's having the same problem, but I can't hear anything.
How about now?
It's all muffled.
How about now?
So, I would ask if you could remove your mask when you're talking. It would help a lot.
Okay.
Who's talking? All right.
Second is Jim.
Jim.
I can't hear.
Okay.
Thank
Is
you.
this better? Okay.
Just pull that microphone right up to
Okay.
yourself. Thank you.
You're welcome. So just to repeat what I had said, in case for the audience that didn't hear it, right now we have a balance of approximately $78,000 left in our CARES Act money that from the original $729,000. I have been speaking with the fire chief to make sure that if there's any expenses that he needs to put forward before December 31st, that he does that. So I'm sure that we will use up all of our CARES money that we have. The ARPA money that Mr. Jermaine spoke about is $2.4 million. $800,000 of it is being directly sent to to Millis. The remaining $1.6 million is coming through the county. In order for us to get the distribution from the county, we need to put in there will be a portal set up for us to put in to request for the funding for a particular project, and we'll need a certified vote at town meeting that the town agrees to the project that we want to have funded by the ARPA money. Not that it necessarily has to be funded by the ARPA money, but it has to be a certified vote to go with that project, and then we'll apply that money toward the approved project.
Okay.
Okay. As far, I guess the next question is the marijuana money.
Please, thank you.
Okay. So on the marijuana money, We received in fiscal year '21 for the host community agreement receipts, we received $488,000. Of that, $92,000 was for the medicinal HCA, and the remaining money was for the retail marijuana. There was a small amount, I think, for some of the new proposed, like a small amount, $15,000 or so, for a couple of projects that are going to be going on. So far in fiscal year '22, I just met and we received the first quarterly payment for fiscal year 22, and that's $125,000 from the retail marijuana.
Carol, real quickly, what is that year to year, year over year? Is that up, down, steady?
So the fiscal year '22 receipt for this quarter that I just received, that's the highest quarterly amount that we've received from the retail marijuana since it started in business.
Thank you.
Is that tax money received? Is that HCA money?
No, that's just HCA money.
HCA
Right,
money
so there's
for the
a-
first quarter.
Right, so there's an additional 3%. That's what the consumer pays, and that gets attributed from the state, and we'll get that September 30th.
Do we know the amount?
It'll be the same amount, the same $125,000 that we
Okay.
received.
So-
Each quarter, I go to Comcan and sit with their accountant. We review all of what she essentially does, gives me all the tax returns that she submits to the state. It has to be submitted by the 20th of the month in which the quarter, the
Right.
following month of when the quarter closed. So we already know what we're going to receive when it comes to the end of the first quarter for the local options tax.
And again, just to provide background and hopefully clarify for everybody, the HCA money is limited to 5 years. I think we're 2 years into that. The tax revenue, and so after 5 years, that 3% will go away, but the tax revenue for sales, that's also 3%, and that's basically, unless the law changes, in perpetuity.
Yeah, it's for as long as they run the business.
Correct.
Right, that's
So-
correct.
Okay, and are we 2 years in, 2 or 3 years in
Yeah,
now?
we're getting money from year 2. The initial sale of marijuana in the town was November 2019.
And I understand there's a delay. Okay.
So then it's 5 years from then. So 2024.
Thank you. Anything more on those topics? Carol, I didn't mean to cut you off. Nothing else? No more, Carol, no more questions? No more to present to us?
questions
I
for
cut
me?
you off. I interjected.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm set if you're set.
Okay, any more questions for Carol, please?
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for the update on the CARES Act and all the hard work that goes into that. I've been a pest on that, I think for good reason, and I'm glad to see that that money is, spent, almost gone, so that's great.
Okay.
I guess maybe I do have one thing, though, if you don't mind.
Nope.
For those who don't know what the CARES Act is, if you could just tell them what it is.
The CARES Act was money that was given out, but it's based on the population, your population within your town. And I believe it was $299 per head is how the original amount was estimated at. The state was the one the money actually comes from the federal government. It's the coronavirus, the first response to the COVID-19 pandemic crisis that went on. So it was to help cities and towns mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 within their community. And so far, we spent money on various things, but most of it is the PPE, trying to prevent people from getting the COVID-19. The fire department spent money on some striker equipment that they needed for the, ambulance runs and the rest of that. So the school has spent a lot for reopening, obviously, and the town itself has spent money within each of the buildings in order to make it, with the signage and the rest of that, to make it so that the employees stay safe and any residents that come into the building stay safe.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll try to keep us on track. Mr. Gazinski, please, he's going to provide us an update on the Braun property as well as the draft warrant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to touch briefly upon the Braun property purchase, I have been in contact with town council in regards to the closing documents for that. We do have a tentative closing date of October 5th for the property. The select board's approval vote for that purchase is scheduled for next Monday at the board's next meeting. And the process has been going smoothly, and we expect that to transpire smoothly on October 5th. And Carol will correct me if I'm wrong, but we have a ban at this point for the $1 million, so we do have that in the town's treasury, so we can go ahead with the closing again within the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Are there any, through the negotiations with the owner, are there any terms and conditions that have resulted, or what do they call that in real estate? Exclusions or disclosures or anything that's been negotiated besides just the sale price that would be noteworthy and also public?
Nothing noteworthy. Really, the way that this process works with the town's option under the Chapter 61A is that the property is sold as is.
Okay.
So there are, some old structures on the property, and the town has done an initial evaluation, and the town will plan to address those old buildings moving forward. So that may be something that comes up, as early as the Springtown meeting. We'll have to see if we determine that any of those structures should come down in the short term. But again, they're not major structures, but they're a few old chicken coops and things like that would be pretty straightforward to remove.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gazinski on the Braun property? Great. None heard. Please proceed.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to touch briefly upon the just some of the warrant articles on the draft, and I stress the word draft warrant. The warrant isn't even closed yet. It will close next Monday. At that point, we'll have a more complete listing of the articles, and the board will be reviewing, a few other articles, although I think the core articles, or the articles of probably most interest, are already listed here. So I will briefly go through those, and Mr. Chairman, if you want to stop me if there's any specific questions, but I'm going to approach this from the 10,000-foot viewpoint at this point, because the details will be forthcoming within the next week. So the first article is a standard article for a fall town meeting, and that's unpaid bills. So again, nothing big to note here, but we have that there, and there will be a few bills there that are there for a number of reasons, whether the business, was late in supplying us with a bill, or there was some miscalculation on a bill that had to be rectified. So we'll talk more about that when I have the bills, the actual bills on the list. The next article is the FY22 operational budget adjustments. Again, these are any adjustments that are needed for anything that's unexpected that's occurred since the town meeting in May, that we'll need to make any adjustments. Again, we'll have a list of those for your next meeting to be able to go through and discuss. Article 3 is the capital items, which Mr. Chairman, you've been working diligently with the members of the Capital Planning Committee on that, and that is ongoing, and we have a robust list of requests, which the capital, I know you have it on your list to talk about, so I don't steal your thunder.
Go right ahead.
But the Capital Committee will be meeting a number of times over the next few weeks to review those. And actually, I think there's a meeting next Tuesday. We'll be meeting with all the department heads. We've invited all the department heads that have submitted projects for funding at the fall town meeting, so they can come in and give their pitch and answer any questions that the committee may have before you rank those and give your recommendations for those items. Article 4, I think Mr. McKay covered pretty thoroughly at this point. I think the latest number we have from our consultants is, I think, $5.4 million for the estimate for the plant. That does contain a pretty large contingency, but, you know, again, these types of things, it's better to have the authorization and make sure you have what you need, and then try to work and reduce that cost as much as possible. And again, we'll have more information on that in the next week. The next item, Article 5, is the Senior Work Program Abatement Adjustment. Under the prior approvals of town meeting, this is a very popular program. It's a tax work-off program for seniors in the community that would like to volunteer their time to assist the operations of town government, while at the same time getting a credit or a reduction on their tax obligation. And in order to keep up with the maximum amount that the state allows, we'd have to take an adjusted vote. Right now, I believe the cap on the program is $1,350 in a credit, and this will move it to $1,500. So this is just an adjustment of a program we already have in place. Article 6, the sewer bylaw amendment. This is something that the Select Board and the Enterprise Fund Advisory Committee have been looking at, and again, the Enterprise Fund Advisory Committee is meeting tomorrow night to discuss this item in length. And for those who may not have the background on this, this is really addressing an issue we have where a lot of individuals in the community have had access to the town sewer for quite a period of time, and it's utilizing our allotment with the Charles River Pollution Control District. So it's really an issue that has to be addressed to look at the town's capacity for sewer, which right now we're pretty much, at least on paper, we're at that cap. So again, it's an issue that needs to be addressed. The Select Board have asked the Enterprise Fund Advisory Committee to give its recommendations and come back to the board with the recommended bylaw change. And so the board will be taking that up, and that'll be part of this warrant you'll be seeing over the next few weeks. Article 7 is actually an article requested by the Board of Health. This is in regards to the construction of new homes or dwelling units. There's been some issues with some dwelling units being built very close to the water table, and this is an approach that the local our Board of Health would like to take in making sure that foundations of homes are placed at least 2 feet above the water table so that we don't have flooding or stormwater problems with these properties. So again, I'd imagine that members of the Board of Health and the Health Director will come in and speak to you about the specifics of that. And we'll have the final language on that. We should have it by your meeting next week. Are there any questions at this point? I do have a few articles left, but... All right, Article 8, Town Charter changes. So I think the Finance Committee is aware that we did have a Town Charter Study Committee that the Select Board had commissioned to do work in reviewing the Town Charter. They worked extensively and came back with a number of recommendations for the Select Board to consider. The Select Board did discuss all those at a number of their meetings over the past year, and you will see a list of those recommended changes that the Selectmen would like to put forward for consideration of the town meeting. This is a bit of an involved process, so the town meeting would need to approve sending a request for a special act to our state legislative delegation. So if the town meeting approves and recommends these changes, it would go to our reps and senator to take to Boston and ask the legislature to basically approve a special act that would allow the town meeting through a ballot vote at a subsequent election to adopt these changes. So this needs to be approved at a town meeting and then by the state legislature and then come back and be approved by a ballot vote at a general election. So again, you'll have the details of those recommended changes, which I think in some form or other, most of you have been aware of and have some knowledge of those recommended changes.
Excuse me, through the chair, if I might ask. I'm under the impression there's more than one requested change. Will
Oh,
they be
yes.
voted individually, or is it a package deal?
It is a package. Now, it's not to say that, there couldn't be discussion. The town meeting always has the right to discuss these items, but it's put forward as a package charter change. And the town meeting can vote and amend, and they can do that on the floor. That's why the select board and now through this process, we'll be seeing if there's any additional public interest and comment for any changes. But I think there are about 4 or 5 different changes that are listed there. And again, that'll be detailed out in the warrant you'll see next week.
And also through the chair again, is there a special reason why it's in a group like this, or is it required to be done like that, or would the select board be permitted to have an article for each? Because I just state, Mr. Chair, that past history at town meetings, it'll get lost, confused, people jump up, I make a motion, so I just hope it would be strongly considered that they be acted on separately.
I can certainly bring that message back to the board. I can tell you historically, that's generally the way it's done, though. It's done as a package. It's not done as an à la carte sort of menu, usually. Not to say it couldn't be done that way, but it's just not generally done that way. But if there are specific concerns that the Finance Committee has or that come back in this process that, can certainly be looked at by the board.
I would just add that we will discuss this, and the Finance Committee will make its own recommendation about whether it's package or à la carte, or what's presented to us from the warrant, as well as, I believe, we'll likely have this on the agenda for an upcoming tri-board meeting as well. So we'll have an opportunity to discuss it,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
to some extent.
Article 9 is, we've done this the past several years to fund the deficit in the snow and ice when one occurs. This is from FY21 in the amount of $78,810 to fund that deficit. Again, the snow and ice budget, as you know, is the one item within the budget that can be in the red or deficit spent through the year. Article 10 has to do with putting some additional funds into our unemployment account. Again, this is how we fund it on a regular basis, is that when those funds in that account run low, we do come back and ask for some additional funding there. And this, for those who may be watching, who say, why doesn't our unemployment insurance take care of that? Well, we don't, as a municipality, we don't have unemployment insurance. We're self-insured, as pretty much most every other town in the Commonwealth is. And therefore, we directly pay for those, the bills associated with any unemployment claims related to town/school employees.
If I might interrupt, Mr. Chair, again, any amount yet, do you think, or?
I don't know if we had.
No, okay.
We haven't set an amount at this
Thank
point.
you.
Article 11 is funding for our Opeb actuarial study. We do need to do this, I think it's every other year. Is that correct?
The first year is a full audit, the second is an update.
Right, so we have to do some level of audit every year in this account. It's just a requirement that we have to do that, so those are the funds to conduct that study. The last article we have is to consider establishing a workers' compensation claims reserve fund. This is a fund that's the state allows towns to set up to cover costs related to employees that are out for workers' out and claiming workers' compensation. Sometimes that can be a drain on a department. We've seen that in some of the departments that have had employees out. Instead of draining down that department's budget and then that department having to come back and ask for a transfer later in the year or a town meeting vote for transfer of funds, if we set up this fund, this could cover those unforeseen instances where there are costs beyond the budget that's been set. So this is sort of like a reserve fund for workers' compensation claims.
I'll just make a quick comment. Hopefully everybody can hear me. And that is, I let it slide a little bit, or maybe it got by when Carol was speaking, giving us an update. Usually one of the questions that she's always asked, and I heard it in a meeting earlier this week on what's the free cash, when is it coming, how much it's going to be, and I will let you know that she has held fast as always, and she's not divulging or projecting what it's going to be, and it's going to be around the 1st of October that those numbers are certified from the state. And the reason I bring it up is because that's the snow and ice deficit for Article 9, that 78K is likely right off the top from free cash, unless I'm wrong, but I think I'm right. Okay, so any questions for Mr. Gazinski? All right, thank you, Mike.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Mr. Chair, maybe you want to let people know when the town meeting is so they can mark their calendars now?
If I knew for sure, I would.
It's on
I
our
believe it's-
agenda here.
I believe
Thank you,
it's on the
Deirdre.
8th of
November 8th.
8th of November. So we'll go through the dates actually in a little bit. Okay, I'll give a quick capital planning update because Mike thankfully stole some of my thunder. And he attends the meetings as well for the Capital Planning Committee, as does Ms. Johnston. And so there's a Capital Planning Committee, as many people are aware. Mr. Stedman is on the committee as well, along with Mr. McCaffrey, Mr. Barry, Mr. Corcoran, Ms. Roche. I think I got everything. And I think there's a vacancy or two on the committee for others that may be interested. And
Is Mr. McCaffrey on it?
he is.
Okay.
He's an at-large member, no longer the rep. Oh, and I'm sorry, Miss Underhill as well is on the committee as the select board rep. So we've started our process. We've gone through the town administrator, gone back to the departments to have them validate their requests and send any new ones in. They've done that. We are reviewing those. Our next meeting is Tuesday, as Mike said. And it's a public meeting. We'll go through those requests and start our essentially rank ordering those on need, how important they are to the town, using the same algorithm that we've used for previous rankings of the projects. Projects that don't get funded in a previous town meeting may reappear as a requirement, as likely they would if they're still valid requirements. And they may go up. The situation may get worse, and it may be an elevated need for funding. As many of you probably know, the Capital Planning Committee we have been calling funding agnostic. So whether or not we anticipate funding for coming through free cash or other means, we will still evaluate the project, and it's really up to the select board and us and the town to decide whether something gets funded. We're just giving a recommendation of how important, how bad do we think the project needs to be funded, and then it's up to these other bodies to decide where the funding comes from. And obviously there are rules for that. If it's an enterprise fund project, we're still going to rank it. If it's getting grant funding like PFAS or some other project, we're still going to rank order it and evaluate its criticality. So that's the process that we are going through. The Capital Planning Committee now has administrative support, so Maureen Canisi is helping the committee and helping Mr. Barry, who has done really 95% of the work on his own. And we try to do our best to support him and answer questions and do our deliberations or discussions to help him. But he does, up until administrative support, has been doing that all on his own. So we're happy for the support. And one of the other items that we're working on is seeing if there's a better tool that we could use to manage the town's capital items, capital assets. Right now, it's done via spreadsheet, and there are varying viewpoints on whether that's appropriate or not. So that's a discussion that we're having in the committee. And then the last thing I'll say is an item for, I'll just plant the seed, because I think it's important. We've had the discussion here over a number of years in this committee as to what is a capital asset, what is a capital item. We see requests from time to time for maintenance of something. I won't get into specifics too much because I don't think that's fair, but maintenance of an item, is maintenance of an item a capital request? Probably not, in my opinion. But again, that's a discussion to be had, and I'm not speaking for the committee. The committee hasn't voted on it. And we'll go through and figure out whose job and whose authority and responsibility is to define what the capital planning committee evaluates for capital requests. I'll give you, so I'll leave it at that. I don't want to kind of taint the waters by giving examples, because I'm not trying to make an argument. I'm just telling you that it's a discussion that we're having at the capital planning committee, and it's one that will likely come up during the tri-board, because I'm going to bring it to the tri-board as an item for discussion, and hopefully we get that resolved and stop kind of kicking the can on just that very issue. So.
And we'll learn more on Tuesday. What time, Mr. Chair?
I believe the meeting is at 6:30, but it is posted on the town calendar.
Is it a Zoom or in person?
Zoom.
Do you know yet?
Zoom, yep.
Thank you. It's an important committee. I think people should realize that.
Okay, any questions for me on capital planning? Any further questions on capital planning committee? Okay. Moving right along, actually we're ahead of schedule, which is great. Obviously, Mr. Schultz is no longer in attendance, at least not this week, and not as a...
Them?
I'm sorry?
Do we need them?
They are welcome to come and go as they want. This is...
Really?
I was going to say we do, but... Actually, I do have one question for you. It could come up. And I'll ask it right now. So we're going to vote, we're hopefully going to get a nomination or nominations for the next vice chair with Mr. Schultz's departure from the committee and now that he's on the select board. I don't know, candidly, just up front, I don't know how the vote proceeds in terms of if we get multiple nominations, do we vote one at a time, yay, nay, or do we take a vote and whoever gets the most votes is who the committee selects as the next, whatever position we're discussing. So it's a mechanical and procedural in nature.
Mr. Chair, although I've been sitting in these types of meetings for 27 years, I don't know if I'm the best parliamentarian.
Sure.
But I would say in my past, the way it's been handled is, the chair would ask for nominations. If there's, and then if there's a nomination, then you'd see if there are any other nominations, and then it'd be a discussion.
Do we take a motion? So if we
Well,
have-
the nominations, different boards have different procedures on that. Some boards want a second to a nomination. Other boards, it's not. But with a board of this size, I think you could say we want a second. Is there a second to the nomination?
Okay.
And if you get several nominations, you have a discussion, and then generally you would take the vote in the order of the nominations that came in until you had one that succeeded.
Okay. All right. It's fine. I just want to make sure that, because it's not a yay or nay, it potentially could be a count that.
And I've seen boards even have, do straw polls and things like that and write stuff down on a piece of paper. I mean, ultimately, the final vote has to be done in an open, with a formal vote.
All right.
But at least to get an idea of where the feeling of the committee is.
All right. Well, it perhaps won't happen at all because I've gone weeks without having anybody expressing
That's what I'm
interest.
thinking.
So,
Now, what's the way to do it?
If you do not
there
get
is no-
if you don't get any volunteers,
Then I get to pick, right?
what happens is if there's no vice chair, then the custom is that the ranking member of the finance committee, the longest serving member, becomes the chair in your absence.
Okay. Well, I will consult with the town moderator on, the tenure, rank and tenure besides that.
See, you might be stuck with it in that
Anyway,
situation.
Thank you, sorry to keep you.
Oh, very good. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mike.
Nice to see you.
Appreciate your help. So with that said, I am seeking a nomination or just discussion of, who would like to be the vice chair to succeed Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Riley.
I would suggest Jody.
I second that.
I have to ask, and I believe I know the answer, but Jody, are you willing to serve as the vice, having just served as the chair?
Sure, yeah, no problem.
Okay. That's excellent. Anybody else? Any other nominations? None heard. Any further discussion? And can I get you seconded?
I second it.
Thank you, Joyce.
You're welcome.
Okay, all those in favor of Jody serving as the vice chairperson, say aye.
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 Nay, any nays? And I don't believe we have any abstentions. Okay, congratulations, Jody, thank you, and I look forward to serving with you again, so outstanding. Doug, refresh my memory, you still have time to go as clerk, and you're still willing to serve?
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
Okay, all right. And when do you know when your term is up officially, or like on, the cycle? Are you 1 year into your term, or did you just get reappointed? Because those are really the only options, 2-year terms.
I honestly don't really know.
Okay, so I'll take an action that for next meeting and further discussion is to bring a list of the other subcommittee, which I have said that I should do previously but have yet to do, is to bring a list of the subcommittees that need representation and make sure that we have those things all covered, and see if there's any adjustments needed with Katie's departure, with Sean's departure, and with Craig's departure. So, okay, so we'll put that on the agenda for one of our next meetings. Okay, any last comments on that before I move on? Okay, discussion of improved Finance Committee information dissemination to the public. I, again, haven't done much on that other than, really haven't done anything on it, and I still feel strongly that we ought to be pushing information to the public versus telling them where to go find it and having them have to reach or pull for it. And the path that I'm headed down is to first get a little bit of a social media push, whether that's Instagram or some other means other than the town website to push information. I think, and then people can subscribe to it. They have to do that on their own, and say, hey, there was a town, and that could just be as simple as an Instagram post that says that Finance Committee met. If you're interested in what we talked about, here's the link. And the link can be right to the minutes or right to the public access, the Millis community media, something along those lines. And then the other thing that I really think is important, so as to not waste too much time on this, is to give some thought now on how we can best operate or conduct our pre-town meeting, because that was discussed during the last Springtown meeting. Was, hey, I heard this comment during Springtown meeting. I didn't know that there was a pre-town meeting, and not sure, if people don't know, I'm not sure why we do it other than as almost a kind of a dress rehearsal and to get some comments. I just think we need to do a better job of publicizing and advertising the pre-town meeting, but also conducting it to make sure that we get participation. So that's one of the things that I'd like to make sure that we do prior to or during this cycle, this current fall town meeting cycle. I don't want to miss the opportunity to improve how we disseminate information. So I don't think that's going to require any change on our part in terms of what we do at fall town meeting. Of course, we'll have to be cognizant of whatever COVID precautions are, in place at that time. But just be aware that, and if you have any ideas on how we can do that, whether it's, putting a board out front of the fire department that says pre-town meeting and people drive by it. I mean, they do it in Norfolk. I drive by Norfolk Town Hall or the fire department every day, and they advertise their meetings, as we do, but I don't think I've ever seen pre-town meeting up there. But anyway, I want to make sure there's something of a, lack of a better word, a blitz for, the fall town meeting, and notwithstanding Kathy's question, the advertising the date of the fall town meeting as a start on that, and this whole schedule in terms of important dates that are upcoming, not necessarily that we have to advertise, when final recommendations are going to be made, but there are some key dates that I'd like to push out. So, frankly, I've been very reluctant to post on Millis Public Forum. It's just, to me, it's less than optimum at best for a public dissemination of information. But at this point, it would be a good time for me to kind of dip my toes in the water and at least just make a general informational post that says fall town meeting's upcoming, yada, yada, yada. And, the discussion can take wherever it goes. At that point, I'm just posting information, and I don't plan on having, any real dialogue, other than maybe answering some questions, for all of Craig Schultz's virtues, he was extremely good at posting good information on the Millis Public Forum. I just have always chosen to stay out of it for probably obvious reasons, because there's some, again, it's less than optimum, but in this case, I see some value that we could at least get some information out. So if anybody has any comments or ideas or questions on this particular topic, I've said all I'm going to say on it.
Well, we did talk about the fact that there is a town Facebook page that information can be provided. You just can't ask questions. And Karen is in charge of that.
Okay.
So that might be an avenue. Or we do there's a town, and then maybe we do a finance. But I think that I like your idea about the marquee in front of something in front of the fire department, or Harkey's real estate agent. He oftentimes will post things for the town. So that might be some place we could ask him if we could put it on his marquee.
Okay. I'll make some inquiries along those lines. And Sarah and others, just a reminder, one of the reasons, it never hurts to give this reminder, one of the reasons that we try to be careful about where we disseminate or have discussions is that we're under the public meeting laws. Anytime that we have a quorum, whether we intended for it or not, essentially means that, unless the meeting is posted, and forgive me, maybe you already know this stuff, I don't know. But unless the meeting is posted, we shouldn't establish quorum, and we shouldn't have discussions on official business. So that's why, that's another reason to kind of be careful of posting, on the forum or other sites. And so, again, a push of information and providing some information is clearly, fine. But we just have to be cognizant of having discussion in places like that. So, okay. Any other comments from the Zoom audience? And nothing heard here. Okay. Any old business, new business? I'm not aware of any, but I will have to go back through my notes, and I'll make myself some notes on the subcommittee Deirdre, if you could just make a note, make sure we put subcommittee membership or assignments on the next agenda.
Get on the next meeting list of committee and liaisons. Is that fine?
Yes, please.
Simon?
Yep. And then real quick, before we get to bills payable and meeting minutes, so you can see some important dates down there. I did talk with Deirdre and Mike about next meetings. So we will meet next week on the 29th. Likely the warrant will be finalized by then. Mike give us a pretty good rundown. Deirdre, you and I talked about having the CPC meeting on the 6th of October.
I thought it was the 5th, but maybe I got the date wrong.
I could have it wrong. However, the point being whether neither of those dates work, because Mr. Barry has asked if he could come on the 13th. And I wanted to verify, with you that that's not too late for our discussion and making sure that our final recommendations, we have it down here as the 20th, so we'll have a meeting on the 20th. There'll be some homework assignments for write-ups and other assignments between, as we get closer to the end of the month. But it really, the pace of, again, for Peter and for Sarah and John, the pace of the fall town meeting is a little bit faster than the Springtown meeting. Springtown meeting and that run-up to that, this committee is focused on the budget, the operating budget throughout the year. This fall town meeting is typically less involved or not quite as extensive of a warrant, but it happens a little bit faster. And so everything gets kind of compressed. But as again, we got a pretty good idea of what the warrant articles are. And there could be many others. There could be citizen, petition items or warrant articles added between now and then. This is not necessary, it's open right now. So anything could happen between now and when it's closed. And it could get reopened later down the date. But so we'll have some, we'll have committee members or department members come in and talk to us about their requests, whether it be their capital requests. Mr. Barry will give us a rundown on the 13th. So just to kind of help you understand what's going to happen. And then we'll assign articles typically based on experience. We'll keep it pretty simple for you if you haven't done it previously. And the members that had, like the Opeb article, that one's been written about and discussed at town meeting time and time again. Jody is the resident expert on Opeb, whether she likes it or not, and she can help anybody if we reassign that to somebody new. I typically will do the capital meeting, the capital items, Article 3. I suspect that Kathy will likely do anything that's related to the enterprise, as she's the committee subcommittee member, representation on that and the chair of that committee. So it just makes sense why, although we will get an opportunity to learn that, likely none of us will understand it and know it as good as her. So, okay, that has got us off track because I'm talking too much. Deirdre, we have a couple of bills to pay. I'm going to put Joyce on the spot and have Joyce make a motion.
This would be this is for supplies and expenses with WB Mason in the amount of $29.38.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we vote to approve the amount of $29.38 for supplies and expenses to be paid to WB Mason. And just to note that these were for nameplates for John and for Peter, and I suspect we'll get another one soon although I think Sarah has a nameplate. So somebody's either on the ball or Or you already had one, I'm not sure. So anyway, so it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? None heard? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays?
Aye.
And so I'll make this very cursory. I know I should have done this earlier.
There's another bill, isn't there?
There is. Doug? Aye.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I have to do this. Jim? Jim Borg? Aye. John?
Aye.
And Peter?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And everybody here was an aye. So
Aye.
Deirdre, you have that?
I did, yes.
Okay, Deirdre, do I need to go back and re-vote the vice chairperson?
I think I got that. No, I think it's okay.
Okay, and we have another.
I
Oh,
move
there
that
it
we, I move that we approve payment of $14.69 to WB Mason, and that would be for the nameplate for Sarah.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to vote to approve the expenditure of $14.69 for the nameplate for Sarah Reyes. Any discussion? All those in favor present here in person, please say aye.
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 Any nays here
Aye.
in person? Doug Riley?
Aye.
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Jody, I'm sorry. I skipped you last time. She always does. She always does. Okay, Deirdre, do I need to have everybody sign or just myself and whoever's present?
Usually it's 3
Yourself,
signatures.
who's ever present, and then I'll just put
Just sign.
the vote in for the remote participants,
Thank you.
and that should be all good.
Okay, and where do you want me to leave these when we're done tonight?
You can just leave them on the table. I'll pick them up tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to vote that the minutes be approved.
So there's you'd like to make a motion?
A motion. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that the Finance Committee meetings of July 14th be approved.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the meeting minutes for the July 14th meeting be approved as written. Any discussion? Deirdre, we have a couple of abstentions, right? Could you refresh my memory because I don't have them in front of me? Who should who should not vote besides Sarah?
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 were present. I think Jim wasn't, so Sarah and Jim Borgman would be abstaining.
Okay, thank you. So all those, Kathy, how do you vote on the meeting
Approve,
minutes?
yes.
Thank you. Aye. And Joyce?
Approve.
I vote aye. Peter? Doug?
Yes.
John?
Aye.
Yes.
Jim?
Aye.
Jim's abstaining. Thank you. Jody?
Aye.
I can't tell you how much you guys look like the Brady Bunch right now.
I know.
We have the windows up. Okay, so the meeting minutes are approved as written. Deirdre, thank you.
I move that we adjourn.
And I've got a motion to adjourn.
Second?
It's been seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, matey, aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.